This is where we start to sort of unpack what I talked about in part 1, where he's often referred to as one of the serial killers with a conscience.
Mm-hmm. That's right. You did say that. I kind of lost track of that during all of the horrific things I was hearing.
Right. Yeah. Hi, Cassie.
Hi, Caitlin.
Hi, creepy people.
Hello.
Hello. I never get sick of that.
Hopefully you don't either, creepy people.
Yeah. If you're new to our creepy corner of the world, this is P&W, Haunts and Homicides, where we chat about true crime, the paranormal, and all things creepy in the Pacific Northwest.
That's what P&W stands for, FYI.
If you're nasty.
We also do a tarot reading at the end of every episode for a little deeper insight into our topic. So make sure to stick around if you're into that.
Yeah.
Or if you're not into that, stick around anyway.
Do it. This week, we're back to telling the backstory of Wayne Adam Ford, but we're going to get into the crimes that would make headlines following his eventual arrest as well. I'm not really going to preamble this.
Okay.
We're just going to dive right in. So, yay.
Let's go. Let's dive. Go for a dive.
She's not reaching for her glass. I felt like I was giving her a strong enough cue there.
To take a big sip?
Yeah. And keep it close. Let's recall that he's in his drunkenly wearing camo to stalk my wife in the front yard phase of life.
Right.
So things are obviously about to start running downhill.
I can't imagine why.
Yeah.
Where is this going?
Yeah. I really hope that was obvious. I don't feel like I want to have to explain that.
If that sounds like something you want to do, maybe check your life.
Yeah. It's time to reevaluate. Respectfully. 1983 and 1984 were particularly rough years. Actually, you should probably just assume moving forward, just rough years, if I'm being totally honest.
Got it.
Okay. Just one example. When he complained about depression to someone in his unit, he was hospitalized in the Navy's psychiatric ward in San Diego. His condition did not improve after his short-term stay, which shouldn't be surprising because 3 days is rarely enough time to solve anyone's serious problems. Even 3 months in some cases, I'd argue.
Yeah.
If anything, his behavior only grew worse because that's usually how these things work.
Yeah. Especially if you don't get the help you need.
Eventually, at some point after Kelly asked him for a divorce, she did begin dating the coworker he'd been jealous of too.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Uh-huh.
That stings.
Mm-hmm. So I'm sure in his mind, all of his greatest insecurities and worries are essentially coming to life.
Yeah. I feel like he kind of put that on himself though.
I was just going to say, I feel like you kind of manifested that into existence. She's like, I never really looked twice at this guy, but now all of a sudden, next to you out here in the yard in your camo and, just camping out.
Crazy eyes.
Yeah. He's looking pretty good, actually. Yeah, I could see that. It's roughly around this time that Wayne began stalking Kelly. Obviously, that doesn't seem like it's going to end well. But thankfully, all indications are that it didn't last for long once their divorce was finalized.
Oh, okay, good.
Got to get that paperwork.
I mean, shitty that he stalked her at all because that shit's terrifying.
Yeah, don't love that. I mean, it would be great if that was because Wayne actually got the help that he clearly needed for his increasingly declining mental health. But in actuality, it was due in large part, if not entirely, to his transfer to Okinawa, Japan.
Oh, so he went like super far away. So he's like, that
Yeah.
stalking thing, that's going to be a little much from here.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to pull that off.
God. Okay.
Yeah. So, one way or another, that was done.
Thank goodness for her.
I know. After just a few short weeks went by, not much had changed. In fact, he had another episode of a sort of medical and psychiatric combination. And this is where my thought is, what's happening in a person's mind can eventually take a serious toll on the physical body, like my ex did on my hairline.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
It was like I was dealing with male pattern baldness a little bit, just losing my hair.
That's awful. Stress.
Yeah,
So
0
much
out of
stress.
10. Do not recommend. It wasn't until 1984, after several transfers and unsuccessful attempts to treat his badly worsening physical and mental health, that he was diagnosed with BPD.
Bipolar disorder.
Yes.
Yes, I knew it.
Yeah.
Not that that's a good thing. I just was proud that I knew what it meant.
No, I mean, it's exciting to be correct.
Yeah.
I get it. Then in January of 1985, he was honorably discharged following his less than stellar service record with the U.S. military, which honestly, I was kind of embarrassed when I got to the end of this because I had to read and reread the source material to confirm repeatedly. But I did assume that his problematic behavior was just going to escalate to the point where he would end up being discharged dishonorably. But I guess not. He held it together just enough for just long enough to eke out the honorable discharge.
Wow. He eked it right out of there.
From there, he took odd jobs to make ends meet following his discharge, which is arguably one of the most innocuous but gross words ever.
Discharge?
Yes.
Yeah, it makes you think of like nasty vaginal discharge or penile discharge.
Oh boy.
Sorry, everybody.
Okay. In 1986, at the age of 24, he moved to Garden Grove, California, which is a really cute name for a place. And I hate how these guys just ruin everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds very pleasant.
Yeah. It's at this point in the timeline that Wayne not only meets a new love interest, and the two would actually eventually move to San Clemente together, but he is also arrested for brutally attacking a sex worker.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's getting real here. All right.
He's got a lot going on. This relationship would be a tumultuous one, but it didn't fizzle out fully until around 1991. And that is like 5 years too long, I would argue.
Did you see me trying to math in my head?
I did.
How long did she put up with him for?
I am looking at the notes and I can see the 2 dates and can confirm. It's a little bit confusing to parse this all out as well, just because many of the women he had relationships with, shocker, aren't super keen to be associated with him in the aftermath. Or at least that's what I gather, because a lot of them did interviews at one point or another and they were anonymous. And there's also some other things, but we're not there yet. So just, I'm not surprised. I don't think we should be surprised that they're like, yeah, let's talk about my serial killer ex-boyfriend.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you. Right?
Never.
Yeah. No, thanks.
Hashtag never Bundy.
Yeah. Swipe left on Bundy. It's a couple of years later that Wayne meets Elizabeth at a karaoke bar and the two hit it off. What bothers me about this is she was 19.
Oh.
And I don't know how she was able to get into bars.
Was it a bar or was it like a food
It's
place?
not totally clear to me. So maybe that's all that is. And I'm making something out of nothing.
Or fake ID or
Yeah, that was very popular in the 80s. I have it on good authority.
or maybe they just didn't even card, you know?
A lot of places, I think that was kind of the common practice because they're like, well, listen, 19-year-old money spends just as well as the rest, y'all's.
She looks old enough.
Yeah. Old enough for what?
Singing karaoke.
Oh, I was going to say, like, do you remember that scene in Superbad? A party. This new relationship also quickly devolves into an abusive pattern, as had been the case with Kelly before she eventually left him, as well as seemingly every other woman before and since. So that is the pattern, is that it's a pattern of abuse. So pattern of patterning of abuse.
Pattern of he's the problem.
Yeah. The escalation of the abuse did not stop the couple from eloping to Las Vegas in 1994. Now, did you know there's a difference between eloping in Las Vegas and eloping to Las Vegas?
I have no idea what you're saying.
I looked it up.
You're saying the same words.
Right? That's what I thought. But there was a little voice in the back of my head that said, they're not the same. You grammar nerd.
What?
I looked it up. So if you are in this city where you then elope, because you're basically just staying in the same city and you're eloping in the sense that you're not having a wedding.
Okay.
That is eloping in Las
okay.
Vegas. If you elope to Las Vegas, you are somewhere in California,
I see.
as these lovebirds were, and then you're going to Vegas to elope.
I get it.
Yeah. Fun fact that isn't really that fun, but it is a fact.
Boring facts with Caitlin.
Thank you. At the time, she was 21 and he was 32. The couple had a son in December of 1995, but unfortunately, it did nothing to curb the abuse. If anything, at a time when this young woman was perhaps the most vulnerable that she had been in her adult life, it arguably grew far worse. He pushed her sexual boundaries, seemingly wanting control of her, and she may have actually inadvertently reinforced his desires and expectations. And this is not victim blaming at all. It just, she's not responsible for what he might have incidentally misconstrued in his own completely disturbed mind. But some of the things that she did at that point in their relationship may have let him think that these behaviors were acceptable.
Oh, no.
And I think she's just very young. She's vulnerable as just a 21-year-old woman who's dating a significantly older man, but she's also now pregnant with their first child. So before they eventually split in July of 1996, and while she was midway through her pregnancy, Wayne raped her following an argument. And that was at some point in 1995. Though it doesn't appear that they called it quits for good right away. They were on again, off again for much of 1995 and 1996, and it doesn't appear their eventual divorce was final until some time later. Quite a few years later, actually.
Wow.
Their divorce papers were sealed once he was in law enforcement custody, which obviously does not come until later as well. But more of that. I don't really want to talk about my serial killer ex.
Oh, right. Okay.
Though she was extremely wary of protecting their son, in October 1997, Elizabeth took their young son to a pumpkin patch in California so that Wayne could invite his friends along to meet their son.
Oh, pumpkin patch.
I know, spooky season. There are so many reasons why this case, I've actually had it on my radar for a little while, but all of a sudden the stars aligned and I think The pumpkin patch, that's just fortuitous timing with spooky season. But there's something else, and I think you'll see why.
Oh.
I have to think she might have been unaware that following their initial breakup and leaving with their young son in tow, that Wayne had not only struggled to hold down a job, but that he had also been arrested for animal cruelty.
What? Ooh, dick.
Yes. So I think you can tell what trigger warning is appropriate here. And if you want to skip this part of the story, it's fairly brief. So you should be missing only maybe a minute or two. And I've actually taken a lot of the details out because I know that they would be particularly upsetting to you right now.
I'm scowling.
I know. Well,
my dog is dead, Caitlin.
I know. It's literally the first thing I thought about. I read this on the plane to Austin and I was like, motherfuck, I am too deep into this. I am not starting over. So I have sanitized this particular section of some of the details that would have made editing perhaps a bit of a challenge.
Okay. Thank you.
Just remember that when you read this or you're hearing it and you're like, this is so fucking awful. And I'm like, it's so much worse. Okay. At the time, he was working as a tow truck driver. The best I can decipher, it appears that the animal in question was one of his employer's guard dogs and lived on site at the tow yard. And according to some accounts, both of the dogs were barking at all hours.
They're guard dogs.
Mm-hmm. At the time, Wayne was living next to the tow yard. Wayne alleged that he had repeatedly warned the owners that he would kill the dog if it stepped foot on his property.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
He worked for these people?
Yep. I did not know that in my initial reading of the account, but I've had to, read about it several times now.
Oh.
So cool. Yeah, that's what I came to understand.
Great employee.
Yes. Those may not have been his exact words, but he did mean it. Whatever he said at the time, unfortunately. He was supposedly caring for his ex's dog and feared that it would be hurt by the aggressive animal if it intruded onto his property. Which seems like a very convenient excuse.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't trust you with her kid. I'm not sure why she would have left her dog with you, but whatever.
Interesting. Okay.
When this all played out as poorly as you might think, in the end, and the dog from the tow yard died by Wayne's hand, or rather gun, he was sentenced to just 5 days jail time for killing it. Of the incident, his former boss stated he was upset because the dog was barking. That man declined to give his name, by the way. So not just women declining to be associated with him.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Quoting further from the boss, he kept firing rounds in the dog after it was dead.
Oh.
It's unclear whether he actually served the time for killing the dog.
Why? He should be in jail forever.
I mean, spoilers, but yeah.
For the dog, though.
Yeah. Wayne's mental health had seriously declined, as has probably become abundantly clear. I hope.
Yeah. If you're overkilling a dog, something is wrong with you.
Just a thought. His frustration over his failed marriage, living in a trailer without his son, surrounded by the ever-present grinding noise of his new professional endeavor, working at a cement plant as a truck driver. Whatever it might have been, he was really actually beginning to snap. Then in October of 1997, Wayne decided to pick up a hitchhiker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And the hitchhiker was the murderer, right?
No. Yeah. So the pumpkin patch thing wasn't the only thing happening in October. This young woman was in her early 20s and had dark brown hair. He introduced himself as Adam, which was an alter ego.
Was it?
Yep, which is never a good sign.
No.
Very few people can pull off that kind of nonsense. And let's just say he's a far cry from Beyoncé calling herself Sasha Fierce. Okay? Like, no. Maybe having introduced her to an alter ego was his way of disassociating from his actions. It doesn't seem too far-fetched, but even if I was a licensed forensic psychologist, I've certainly never spoken to the man, so it's hard to say. In any case, what could have started off as a consensual encounter, though I tend to doubt it, quickly became rough, resulting in Wayne choking her. He stabbed her repeatedly with a hunting knife before beheading and dismembering her.
Well, holy shit, that escalated.
That escalated real quickly.
So he was planning this, right? Like, I don't know if he was planning the entire thing, but like he had a knife handy.
I mean, there's an element of premeditation.
Yeah.
We'll say that. Because only her torso was discovered in the Ryan Slough, just north of Eureka, California, she remained unidentified even after additional remains were discovered in January of 1998 on a different beach. She had likely died less than a handful of days prior to the initial discovery of her remains. Then, almost exactly a year later, down to the day, in October of 1998, another young woman's remains were discovered, that of Patricia Ann Cummings. Wayne was still working as a truck driver at this time. Patricia had been an upper middle class college student until she dropped out. Since then, she had been working as a sex worker and struggling with substance abuse. A friend stated that she had gotten really into crystal meth, and it had since become her primary objective to support that habit, which is generally the case.
Yeah.
That is what we call addiction. After Wayne and Patricia came to an agreement regarding the terms of the intended encounter, she joined him in the sleeper cabin of his truck. However, Wayne went off script when he began strangling her, eventually killing Patricia. Her body was found in an aqueduct in San Bernardino, California. She was 29 years old at the time of her death, which would be determined at some point in the course of the investigation to have taken place in Hesperia, California, sometime after she was picked up in Victorville. The entire distance she traveled between getting picked up, her death, and the callous disposal of her body was just under 40 miles.
Wow.
So that's not a long trip. When authorities arrived at the scene, it was immediately readily apparent that the young woman had been murdered. Oddly, one of her breasts had been removed and could not be located.
Oh, why is that a thing?
It's a really good question. Excuse the turn of phrase here, but we're going to put a pin in that for now.
Okay.
Because first we need to circle back to the months of May on through September of that same year, 1998. On June 2nd of 1998, near Buttonwillow, California, another adorable fucking name town, another young woman's body was found. Tina Renee Gibbs, a Tacoma, Washington native, was 26 at the time of her death. She had been killed on May 16th of 1998 near Las Vegas, where she had been working as a sex worker. Later in court, both her mother and stepfather would reflect on her earlier years, long before she'd begun a relationship with someone her parents didn't approve of, and eventually fallen into the trap of addiction. As a teenager, she loved family camping trips and even went along with her mother to visit nursing home patients.
Oh, that's really sweet.
Just fuck me up. Learning of her murder was surely one version of the nightmare that they'd already envisaged for years.
I can't imagine what all had been going through their mind prior to that. It's hard to watch someone go down that path.
Yeah. And then eventually, they probably stopped hearing from her for
Yeah.
a period of time. And that's got to be difficult, but in a completely different way.
Yeah.
Though several months had passed between the first and second murders, in 1998, things began to escalate quickly.
Didn't they already escalate though?
Yeah, we're really kind of just in a pattern of continuing escalation.
You know
So,
me, I hate escalators. Can we just get off the fucking escalator?
you actually hate escalators and escalation.
Yes.
Yeah, accurate. On September 25th, 25-year-old Lynette Dayon White of Fontana, California, was killed in Ontario, California, not to be confused with the one in Canada, just to be clear.
Or Oregon.
Yep.
There's Ontarios all over.
All over the place. That was before it's believed her body was thrust from a moving vehicle into a ditch in Lodi, California.
Wow, how?
Not really sure. It's not a visual that I personally want to dwell on.
Yeah, I don't want to visualize it, but I'm just like
How
the
logistics of it.
did one person do that, you know?
Yeah, it's puzzling on that end, and how they know that, I want to think less about that.
Yeah.
She had been dead for several days when her body was discovered, as evidenced by the advanced state of decomposition that would later be noted in the autopsy findings, which is pretty horrifying for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that this is a human being you just brutally murdered, and to be so incredibly callous with how you then cast out her remains. So I'm glad we kind of focused in on that same point there.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I can't wrap my brain around that. Pretty sure that's a good thing, but I hates it. But I'm also considering what most of us, if we're familiar with the city of Lodi, likely associate it with, which is wine. Yes.
Which wine?
Lots of wine, actually. It's funny you mention that. Yeah, lots of wine. So while Lodi is busy growing roughly 40% of the wine grapes produced in the entire state of California, investigators are busy using fingerprint analysis to identify this latest victim. Is it important for you to know that Lodi is the wine grape capital of the world, at least according to the city of Lodi's local government website? Not really. I think it's the harsh contrast between these two aspects of Lodi that are just hitting me in relation to this case. And you know how your girl loves a fun fact?
Yeah.
Just to try to lighten the mood. And if it has to do with wine, so much the better.
It was better than your boring fact earlier.
Yeah. Can we not make that a thing? My boring facts?
I give boring facts all the time.
But here's the thing, okay? Because seriously, Lodi, maybe watch your back, because I feel as though there are some very well-known wine capitals that may be giving you some side eye. Like, I don't know, Bordeaux, located in France. Adelaide, the southern capital city of Australia.
Ooh.
Mate, that's the best I can do. Napa, literally roughly 90 minutes away from Lodi, in the very great state of California.
Did they say they're the capital of the world or the...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. No, these are bold claims. Or just a place in South Africa that's casually named, I don't know, Cape Winelands. Just to name a few of the heavy hitters. So sleep with one eye open. Hopefully you've enjoyed this segment of Wine Facts because it's about to get really dark here. Because there's a little bit more that we need to discuss in relation to Lynette. Unlike some of the other victims that had been discovered up to this point, Lynette's family stated that she was not actively involved in any form of substance abuse or sex work at the time of her death. It shouldn't matter because, of course, that does not make a victim less dead. Lynette's mother stated that although Ford himself had told investigators that she had engaged in sex work, her daughter was actually just beginning a new role in sales at the time of her death.
Oh.
Lynette had last been seen by a family member on September 20th. She was headed to a nearby store to get milk for her baby. Lynette had 4 children, but this was her youngest at just 9 months old.
She left to go to the store
Mm-hmm.
and didn't come back. But the babies.
Mm-hmm. Though her mother's comments had focused on sharing the real story about who Lynette was, her father wanted everyone to know that he did not have a kind or even vaguely neutral word to share about his daughter's killer, as you might suspect. He hoped that Ford would be shown no mercy, saying, "I want to see him dead. He's already dead to me."
Yeah.
But, I mean, who could blame him? Not only did these poor people have to come to grips with the horrific tragedy of what happened to their daughter, but I'm sure they're the ones who will have to explain it to all of their daughter's children. How do you process your own grief when you're faced with such a gut-wrenching loss, and then help your grandchildren to hopefully do the same in a way that doesn't just rip your entire heart and family apart? As horrendous as all of this is, there are still a few more grim details to wrap this case up. In early November 1998, Wayne walked into a sheriff's station in Northern California with his brother Rodney. After initially confessing his crimes to his brother the day prior, Rodney had spent the remainder of the day trying to convince his brother to turn himself in to the authorities.
Wow. Rodney.
It wasn't just his brother Rodney and his Bible that he brought with him, though.
Uh-oh.
After tearfully confessing to the murders of 4 women, he revealed a plastic bag containing a severed breast that would later be identified as belonging to his final confirmed victim, Patricia Ann Cummings.
That's not what I thought you were going to say. I forgot about that part.
Yeah, I did say put a pin in it, which if you have read as much about this case as I have, I'm sorry because it's something I left out, but it's really...
I don't want to know.
Yep. No, you don't. No, you don't.
Oh my gosh. Rodney, his brother, had to hear all of this.
Yep.
And
I don't know how much detail he went into with his brother before he went to the authorities, but
just
yes.
hearing like that your brother committed a crime, and I'm sure he knew it was murder.
Oh, he knew. Yeah, he definitely knew it was murder. That's why
Gosh.
he convinced him to turn himself in.
That's just crazy.
Yeah. Wayne told authorities he turned himself in so he wouldn't kill his ex-wife and leave his son an orphan.
Wow. That kind of reminds me of the Mother's Day. He had a very severe mental health problems, and he tried to turn himself in a few times because he didn't want to hurt somebody.
Yes, and that he was ashamed of what he was doing. His anger was mostly directed against his wife, but apparently he was only becoming angrier with her each day for keeping their son from him. His lengthy confession appeared by the assessment of law enforcement to indicate that his remorse was earnest and his willingness to share details of the crimes, as well as locations of various pieces of significant forensic evidence, seemed almost remarkable to them.
So it wasn't just like a fake confession type thing. It was like
Mhm.
he had a bag of evidence with him.
Right. And there was more that he turned over to them via the statement that he made in his confession. This is where we start to sort of unpack what I talked about in part 1, where he's often referred to as like one of the serial killers, like with a conscience.
That's right. You did say that. I kind of lost track of that during all of the horrific things I was hearing.
Right. Yeah. Who could blame you, honestly? I think it sounds like some of the local law enforcement that spoke with him, it's sort of, I don't know how to say it other than it almost was like it was gaslighting them, kind of fucked them up a little bit because they're like, how does somebody do this? But also, like, he legitimately seems to understand and actually be emotionally affected by the fact that it was so clearly wrong.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I land on that. I wasn't there. I didn't see him confess, but
it's crazy confusing. But you have to imagine that he did feel that way because he went and confessed. Like they weren't putting any heat on him or anything.
No. I mean, I think it's a tough one. It's not as black and white as probably a lot of what we read and what we hear about would maybe lead us to believe.
Yeah, it's very confusing.
I don't know.
Doesn't make it any less horrible, and he's a disgusting dickball.
Yeah, absolutely. He is from under cheese. He apparently even implicated himself in 2 other murders in neighboring San Bernardino and San Joaquin counties.
Damn.
He was held on murder charges in Humboldt County on $1 million bail.
Oh my God, $1 million?
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
I mean, going back to 1998.
Yeah.
I mean, now I feel like that we wouldn't even think of that as really being as big of a deal.
But, you know, the spare change you have in a jar in your closet, right?
That's what I used to buy my townhouse. Yeah. No, I mean, it is crazy. I mean, obviously, this was like 25 years ago, but
it's cute. You think you can get a townhouse for $1 million.
Yeah, like a small one.
I was thinking more like a shack in someone's backyard.
Oh. I mean, it's not quite that bad everywhere.
I'm exaggerating.
Yeah. In the end, though he claimed to have killed only 4 women, it's of course possible that there are more unconfirmed victims of Wayne Adam Ford.
Do you really think, though? Do you really think that he didn't confess to all of them?
I think it's interesting that there are 2 in these neighboring counties that he implicated himself, you know, and yet they are not confirmed victims of his.
Oh, right. Okay.
I do think that because of something we're going to talk about here towards the very end, I think law enforcement is not quite done necessarily examining certain aspects of the case. So it's possible that there could be more updates.
Okay. So there was 4 confirmed, 2 that he claimed he could have done.
Yeah, there's 2 that he's implicated in, and that's a very particular choice set of words.
Yeah, implicated.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if he just mentioned having maybe run across someone that matched a description of another missing individual.
Oh.
It could be that simple, to be honest, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the nature of that element, that segment of the conversation that they had with him was. It's so hard to say.
I know.
Yeah.
I just felt like he was confessing so much, he would just confess to anything and everything he'd ever done.
Yeah. And part of me was like, well, maybe it's better if, I mean, I want everyone that he's harmed to be able to, get some form of justice. But maybe it's better if he doesn't rattle off. At a certain point, there's a number of serial killers that have claimed numbers far higher than what we can, even begin to substantiate. And then it makes people just, theorize, and we get these conspiracy theories that ultimately are not very helpful.
No.
In keeping the case alive in a way that helps them to be solved. There's nothing practical about that, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. He didn't seem like he'd be very boastful to lie, but who knows?
And I want you to remember that you said that.
Okay.
Yeah. Though 2 of his victims remained unidentified initially, when his case went to trial, the jury found him guilty on 4 counts of first-degree murder in 2006 and sentenced him to death.
So 2 of the victims weren't identified?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
He currently resides at the San Quentin State Prison in California. As for his ex-wife, Kelly, according to an article dating back to April 2021, she moved on with a man named Bob that she began dating after her split with Wayne. They eventually married and had a child together. However, from what I can tell, it seems like the couple didn't last. That's based on that same article. Sadly, she also stated that she had been diagnosed with a very aggressive form of cancer and was given about 18 months to live.
Shit.
She talked about how she still carried a lot of guilt, but that at the time of her 2001 interview, she spoke out in hopes of helping someone in a similar situation. Unfortunately, Kelly lost the battle with cancer and passed away in 2020.
No.
Given the fact that the divorce records from Wayne's other ex-wife, his marriage to Elizabeth, those records were sealed, and her family has reportedly declined to comment publicly regarding Wayne's crimes or really much of anything else following his arrest. There's not really any additional information or updates that I was able to find about her or their son that she raised without Wayne.
Gosh, hopefully they're just like in so much therapy and are doing so good.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, by now he's an adult.
Yeah.
So it's funny because it's just, we look at these things in exactly the same manner because my next sentence, hopefully without the continued influence of his violent father, he has been able to grow into a mature and stable man. I didn't pull at that thread. They have clearly tried to make an effort to keep themselves clear of, even before he was arrested. Years before, she was like, I'm out.
Yeah.
So
I get it, man.
Yeah, I think it's understandable. So I found another article that shared a story about when Wayne had an encounter with a man that worked in a Christian book and music shop. Remember, he took his Bible with him.
Right. Okay.
Wayne really opened up to him about his struggles throughout his life up to that point, and even revealed reportedly that he was very concerned that he didn't have a conscience.
Oh.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to share 2 statements that Wayne has made. The first, as the time of his arrest was fast approaching. I hurt some people. I don't want to hurt anyone anymore. Once you see what I have in my pocket, you'll know. This latter statement was made following his arrest. Most serial killers are proud of their work. Not me.
Wow. That is just it's so crazy and sad. Because, like, his life is ruined. He ruined so many other people's lives for literally no reason.
Mm-hmm. One last thing. Maybe you'll recall earlier in the episode, I said that 2 of his victims could not initially be identified.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, obviously, up until now, at least if you were paying attention, and even if you were and you missed it, I've shared the names of 3 out of the 4, so you might have been a little confused. Sadly, the very first woman he killed was a hitchhiker who remained unidentified until just months ago.
Wow, months ago. Ugh.
In June of 2023, Wayne's initial victim was the final of his confirmed victims to be identified. Kerry Ann Cummings was identified using DNA profiling in combination with genealogy matching.
Wow.
We're coming for you. Finally, the 25-year-old Eugene, Oregon native was identified through the partnership of the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office Cold Case Unit, the California Department of Justice DNA Lab, and Othram Inc.
Wow, that is so cool. Technology, man.
Dating back to 1997, Kerry had struggled with untreated mental illness. When she refused to return home to her family, she stayed with friends in the area for a time. These are the details that prevented Kerry from ever even being listed as a missing person or entered into any similar databases.
That's going to make it really hard to identify somebody if they're not even reported missing.
That didn't stop her family from trying to find her.
Wow.
They searched the NamUs website when the internet was new.
Holy shit.
Remember, she went missing before Y2K.
Wow.
And they even hired a private detective at one point. Now they can finally put her to rest with a proper burial.
That's crazy. She was the first and then the last to be identified.
Yeah. I was like, how does that happen? But remember, it's the details of the crime. There are so many factors. You know, the details of her background are what kept her from being even taken down as a missing person. And then the details of the crime itself are what prevented them from being able to identify her because they found a torso.
Yeah.
Which is so horrific to think about. Would you like to think about something else?
Yes, please.
Perhaps tarot?
Tarot? I would love to think about some tarot.
Some tarot?
Let's do it.
Okay. As indie podcasters, we love to show our support of other awesome shows. So stay tuned for the promo we've got to share with you this week.
Let's show them some love. You can find their info in our show notes.
Hi everyone, my name is Stijn Fox and I am the host of the Graham Pagans podcast, here to tell you all about our amazing indie podcast. On the Graham Pagans podcast, we cover such topics as the old gods, witchcraft, giants, tantra, and even more far-out topics such as homunculus and astrotheology. You can find us on all bigger podcasting platforms under Greyhorn Pagans Podcast, and on indie platforms such as Goodpods and Kiyoshi under the same name. Or simply go to www.greyhornpagans.com for the direct link. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you there.
You guys, we're back!
And don't worry, we did get more wine.
Well, of course.
Okay. What's this fucker's name again?
Wayne Adam Ford. Twat Waffle.
Ew.
Yeah, because his initials are WAF. Get it? Guys, you get it? Do you get it?
Waffle? Twat waffle. Twaffle.
Waffle. We have our little altar set up over here, but there's no space. I left no space for us to put the cards out. So I'm going to.
She's cheating.
No, I'm not cheating. That's so rude. I'm spreading them out so I can do a pull. Okay. Page of Pentacles.
Page of Pentacles.
I'm separating the two halves of the deck so that if we want to pull another one, we know where we left off. Okay.
It's kind of fall colors. Kind of goes with our vibe. Looks like she has orange shoes. Maybe they're red. I can't tell.
Yeah, they're like orangey red.
Yeah. And it looks like there's leaves on the ground, but those might be flowers. I don't know. Anyway.
Hard to say. Okay. Page of Pentacles. Our keywords are study, developing resources, naivety, curiosity, potential, and service. Pages often represent the early stages of a matter or a time of study and gaining skills. Some tarot packs picture the Page of Pentacles as a young person gazing at a pentacle, as if trying to understand it.
Oh.
Interesting. If this card represents an actual person, it's probably someone young, intelligent, hardworking, and ambitious.
I feel like that kind of just relates to all the women.
Yeah, maybe.
They were young. They were...
Yeah, and the page oftentimes is, we've talked about it before in other readings where it's like kind of a gender bending card, especially with the Modern Witch deck.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's spoopy season, so I wanted to do the Modern Witch deck. And then, witchiness happening behind us. So, all right. The Page of Pentacles can point to the everyday details of your life and advise you to take care of them. This may refer to your work, possessions, or health. In some cases, this card may indicate naivety on a financial or in a practical area. You're learning how to live in the real world. The page can also show you performing a service for someone. In a reading about money, this card may refer to contracts or other paperwork related to money, possessions, or property. The page upright may describe the early stages of a project when you're discussing possibilities, seeking financial support, or laying the groundwork. You're advised to learn all you can about a money matter. If the reading is about your job, you may be preparing yourself for a career or a career change. Oh, we did have, it was Lynette who had just changed jobs. She was starting in a new role in sales.
Oh,
so that's interesting. Okay. A position in business, healthcare, or the trades could be profitable. Interesting. He worked for that cement plant. That's
I was like, didn't he
trade.
kind of have a bunch of different jobs?
He did, yeah. He's kind of always changing jobs. So the page advises you to work hard and learn all you can in order to reach your goal. In a reading about love, you may be more concerned with security, stability, and the practical aspects of a relationship than with romance. This card can also indicate meeting a partner through work. He was always driving.
Oh,
I don't like that.
I was thinking about kind of the girlfriends and how you said one of them at least stayed like way too long. And
yeah,
I'm sure that was for stability reasons. I mean, why else?
That's true.
I mean, I guess fear too could make you stay, but
definitely fear.
A lot of it, I'm sure, was financial stability type of reasons.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, that's it's interesting that it picked up on this card, that it just doesn't feel like has a lot of other parallels, at least that what I'm thinking about.
I think after you finished, I immediately tried to forget everything you said
Really?
from the story. I was like, I'm having trouble recalling details from the story.
Yeah. I think the thing that jumps out at me is like there's so many phases of his life where it was like it says like he's doing these odd jobs to make ends meet, or he would like get a job, then he would get fired, or he would screw up or whatever. So it's interesting, like maybe it just picked up on that. And I'm wondering if maybe holding the two ends of the deck out was a good move. Like maybe there's another card next to it that
I don't know.
Yeah.
Why don't you look if that's what you're feeling?
I'm going to, but I'm going to read you this extra excerpt
okay.
first. It says, what one does is what counts and not what one had the intention of doing.
Okay, well, like that relates
Yeah.
with like the whole conscience thing. Like you still did it.
Yeah, I don't.
You can feel bad about it, but you still did it.
Yeah, I think that's really true. That for me rings very true in this case.
Ooh, can you read that again?
What one does is what counts and not what one had the intention of doing.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, good intentions are just that. They're just, it doesn't mean a whole lot more than that.
Yeah. Who knows if he ever did have any good intentions, though, if he's saying he never had a conscience.
I mean, I think to me, I sort of started to spiral because I was having that same thought as I'm researching and writing this. But I sort of went back to, you hear this all the time where people start reading about like a sociopath, right? And, or you hear about this, a similar argument when somebody is a narcissist. If you're concerned about it, you aren't one because they don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like to me, it almost was like, I don't know. I go back and forth.
Yeah. Is that something, can you like develop a conscience over time? Just from like seeing how other humans are.
I mean, at that point, are you actually developing a conscience or are these just learned behaviors?
Yeah.
Is the idea that there's a reward system for, not killing people? Is that just more appealing than having people like dislike you or do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting.
I don't know.
Interesting thoughts.
I don't like that. I'm going to look at the card that was underneath here at the bottom of the deck. Oh boy.
What is it?
It's the 5 of Swords in reverse.
Oh, okay.
So does that not just like look, it looks like a man kind of turning back and looking sort of, I don't know if it's angrily or in a forlorn way.
It's hard to tell.
I mean, and in this instance, especially knowing what we do about this deck, I think that's actually supposed to be more of an androgynous character.
Yeah, it's just like a masculine energy,
But just, I mean, that's the picture that I get.
Yeah.
There's 2 other characters like in the foreground, and there's 2 swords on the ground, and then 3 that they're holding. So everything that I was saying about the picture holds true when you look at the traditional deck. So I'll show you this after, but keywords are change, adjustment, loss, destruction, conflict, indecision, and sadness.
Right on for this one.
Mm-hmm. The number 5 signifies change, and this card shows a time of adjustment after a conflict of some kind. Sometimes the fight stems from ideological or spiritual differences. I could say that yes, I do have some ideological and spiritual differences with. I'm
sure a lot of people
all of us do. Yeah. The Rider-Waite Smith, Aquarian, and some other decks show a soldier on the battlefield at the end of a fight. The card asks, "What have you won or lost?"
Wasn't he a soldier?
He was.
I always say soldier. What?
He was actually in the Navy, I believe. Yeah.
I was like trying to remember what you had said.
Reversed, the 5 suggests pretty much the same thing as it does upright. Thank you.
One of those.
When the card appears reversed in a reading, however, you may feel a great sense of remorse, regret, and unhappiness.
Yeah. Okay.
Holy shit. I just got like the chills all over my body.
Definitely. Remorse.
Oh my God. That's crazy. But is it genuine remorse, or is he like, are you just mad you got caught?
But he didn't get caught.
To me, this seems like, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He had to have had some kind of remorse because he didn't get caught. He offered himself
that's
up.
true. That's true. That's true. Sometimes it shows you making repairs or reparations after a conflict, trying to set things right and learning from your suffering.
Did he ever try to do anything like for the families or anything like that?
I didn't see any indication of that necessarily, but he did certainly make allusions to that, like the reason why he turned himself in was that he didn't want to leave his son an orphan, right? And so he's trying to take something that he's done horrifically wrong and not make it worse, at least.
Yeah.
Reflecting on that,
Yikes.
Oh boy. The reversed 5 can indicate losses after a fight, perhaps a legal matter, or squabbling over an inheritance. I don't think it's the latter.
Yeah, probably not.
In the end, no one really wins, and you may experience regret.
It is interesting, though, that they said squabbling, and that's kind of like a sibling thing. And he went with his brother.
Yeah. That's such a good insight.
Thank you.
Squabbling, I really think of as being a word like when two siblings are in the back seat, like, don't make me pull this car over.
Quit your squabbling back there.
Seriously. Oh, shit. This is just unreal. If the reading is about your job, struggles with bosses or coworkers may cause hard feelings or impede your progress.
Yeah.
I'll say. A conflict may damage your chances for advancement, like if you are institutionalized.
Conflicts with your employer, like when the dog situation.
Yeah, that too.
Okay. Yeah.
That too. He had so many conflicts in his own workplace. And he had conflicts with his ex-wife's workplace. Remember, he thought she was cheating with one of her coworkers, and then they ended up getting together.
Yeah.
It says, perhaps causing you to change jobs under unfavorable circumstances, which understatement in this situation. Okay. In a reading about love, this card can indicate mourning the loss of a relationship or regretting a decision made in the heat of an argument. Like maybe you had a few too many. You really tied one on. And then you thought, I am literally going to put on all my camo gear and lay out on the lawn and wait.
That is just the craziest thing.
Yeah. Regretting a decision made in the heat of an argument. Wow.
Well, you said they were arguing too when he did the bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Perhaps you feel betrayed, which is certainly something that he expressed. In some cases, however, it can suggest trying to repair the damage and make constructive changes, perhaps with the help of therapy.
Yeah, mental health is important.
Wow.
I can't believe it till it said something about therapy and we're just like talking about mental health.
Oh my God. Okay, so here is, for me, the significance of kind of the imagery, but also numerically. So there are 2 women, they have their backs to this person who's holding the swords. And remember, there were 2 victims that were initially unidentified.
Yeah.
They're both now identified. We have 3 swords that this person was holding on to, and up until very, very recently, his first victim was not identified.
Oh,
so
yeah.
3 of them, it was almost like it was still.
Yeah. Do
Does
you
that
think
make
there's a
sense?
fifth?
I don't think so.
I mean,
But
you wouldn't know. None of us would know, but
yeah. I mean, it's so hard to say. The other thing is, I think there's 2 that it's like they're still, it's like people, they're figures that are standing, right? And then there's 2 that are on the ground. And it's
Yeah.
like those 2 are the 2 that were unidentified. Like, I don't know. It's just, he has 4 victims,
Interesting.
right? And it's the 5 of Swords.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just seeing a lot of significance there with kind of where the swords are positioned and
Yeah. Well, I mean, he had more than just the victims that he murdered. He had
Right.
rape victims and
right.
who God knows what the fuck else he did.
Yeah. Yeah. Whew. Anybody else feel like they need a shower, or is that just me? If you loved listening to that tarot reading and want to see it, because obviously, duh,
We're cute.
yeah, become a member of our Patreon, where a video of every tarot read is uploaded with the ad-free version of the episode each week, which is going to start feeling more significant very soon.
Those videos typically have a lot of extras in them as well that we cut out of the regular episodes. So you get to feel like you're behind the scenes a little bit.
Little bit. Patreon, for those of you that maybe are wondering what the hell is that exactly, please explain. It's a monthly subscription with a range of price points and benefits. Every member gets a personalized welcome card, a shout out in an upcoming episode, and exclusive bonus episodes, and a lot of other things, some of which we don't even know about yet.
A lot of other things like a mini tarot reading in your welcome card. And if you want a special shout out, if you want us to say something different other than your name or something, you'll have to message us directly on Patreon and let us know.
Do it.
If you can't support us monetarily, no worries, because the easiest ways to support are absolutely free.
Tell everyone and anyone you come into contact with about us.
Tell your dog walker about us, because they need a podcast to listen to while they're walking your dog.
Or your barista.
Yeah.
Or bartender. Or you can leave us a 5-star review on any platform where you're listening to us. If you're not listening to us on Apple, that's fine. But I mean, go there and leave us one there too, because that's the big one. That's the big boy.
Just sprinkle those stars all around town. You know what I mean?
Yes.
If you have any true crime, paranormal, or witchy stories to submit for our listener appreciation episodes called the Creepy People Chronicles, please email us at pnwhauntsandhomicides@gmail.com. Or you can also we have a handy dandy little Google contact form you can fill out and tell us your story. And the link to that would be in the episode description.
You're always welcome to remain anonymous if you write in with a story. And remember, your stories do not have to be coming from the Pacific Northwest specifically if you want to share. If they're a story from somewhere in Europe or Asia or Africa.
Follow us on all of the socials if you don't want to miss out on photos of our tarot cards, our beautiful altar setups, which today there is a lot of fire next to me.
There's a lot of pyrotechnics.
Yeah, Caitlin went a little crazy.
You can find our website or our link tree in the description of this episode to check out all of the fun that we have to offer. And if you get confused and you go to the link tree when you really wanted the website, you can still go to the website directly from the link tree.
There's so many links on the link tree.
There's links to the links.
Have a creepy ass day. See you next Tuesday.
Or, whenever. Whenever we recover from this.
Yeah.
I don't know. We gotta go.
Never see this fucker again, hopefully. Don't confess to any more crimes.
No, thank you.
Unless it's going to help somebody, I guess. But
yeah. I was like, actually, confess more.
Yeah, confess more, but also like don't do the thing in the first place to have to confess to it.
Yeah.
You know? Does that make sense?
Yes, I agree. I concur. Okay, but really though.
Bye. Do you want me to splash some cold wine on you?
Yeah. Yes, please. I'd like to just take it in through my pores. It's better than butt chugging.
I was just thinking that face chugging better than butt chugging. Outtake? Anyone?